Mayor of Mayhem, Mamdani's War on Hindus, Jews, and New York. Written by Rakesh Krishnan Simha. The Democratic Socialist wants to be the mayor who would fix New York City by fighting India and Israel. His campaign is increasingly less about local issues and more about importing distant ideological battles to America's most diverse and vibrant city. As the 2025 New York City mayoral race enters its final lap, Zoran Mamdani has emerged not just as a frontrunner, but as the candidate from hell. His campaign, marked by ideological zeal and foreign policy rants, has unsettled voters across the political spectrum. Born in Uganda to a Marxist Muslim father and a filmmaker mother with a carefully curated cultural identity, Mamdani embodies the contradictions he now projects onto New York. His brand of politics isn't about unity, it's about vendettas. With a platform steeped in class warfare and global grievance, Mamdani has managed to alienate significant sections of society, including Hindus and Jews, all the while parading as a champion of inclusivity. To his woke base, he's a progressive visionary. To others, he's the poster child for identity politics gone rogue. Let's begin with Mamdani's background. He exemplifies a recurring pattern. Children of interfaith marriages where one parent is Muslim often gravitate toward Islamist-leaning ideologies. Mamdani's father, Mahmoud, styles himself as a Marxist, but this is intellectual dishonesty at best. A devout Muslim cannot truly be a Marxist. The godless foundation of Marxism is irreconcilable with Islam's theocentric core. What we see instead is a strategic disguise. Marxism becomes a convenient mask for radicalized Muslims, allowing them to launch attacks on other faiths under the cover of secular critique, all while shielding Islam from scrutiny. And yet, this ideological bait-and-switch fools no one but gullible liberals and leftists who either fail to see or deliberately ignore the obvious. Muslim Marxists never dare to criticize Islam. One such fake Marxist Muslim is Delhi-based student activist Umar Khalid, who has furthered the Islamist agenda in the guise of a communist atheist. Currently in prison, he has supported hardened Islamic terrorists, including those who were involved in the attack on the Indian parliament. His father was a member of a banned terrorist organization. And guess what? In 2023, Mamdani read Khalid's notes written from prison. Mamdani's mother, filmmaker Mira Nair, is a Punjabi Nair who managed to hoodwink millions of Malayalis into believing she was one of them with her misspelled name. Such duplicity is at the core of the mayoral candidate who pretends to be inclusive when in reality he harbors deep animosity toward Hindus and Jews and tacitly supports violence against both groups. Mamdani is a prominent figure in the Democratic Socialists of America, which states its goal is to collectively own the key economic drivers that dominate our lives. He is flogging the same failed economic policies that bankrupted the Soviet Union. His vision for New York City includes fare-free public buses, city-run childcare, rent freezes, and even municipally owned grocery stores. His radical views have earned him the sobriquet 100% communist lunatic. These ideas, which spring from his communist leanings, have energized the woke segments of the Democratic base. Yet, beneath his ambitious domestic platform lies a pattern of polarizing rhetoric and contentious foreign policy positions. His vocal stances on Indian and Middle Eastern politics have ignited sharp backlash, with many fearing it could exacerbate social divisions in one of the most diverse cities in the world. Anti-Hindu sentiment. One of the most troubling controversies in Mamdani's record stems from a 2020 protest in New York's Times Square, where demonstrators, led in part by Mamdani, descended into anti-Hindu sloganeering, with attendees shouting derogatory remarks about Hindu deities and faith. Who are the Hindus? Harami, bastards, the mob was heard yelling. Rather than ask the crowd not to hurl abuses or distance himself from the clearly bigoted crowd of Khalistanis who were dehumanizing the Hindu community, Mamdani doubled down and began spewing venom against the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. I am here today to protest against the BJP government in India and the demolition of the Babri Masjid that attempted to build a temple on the ruins of it, he said, tacitly endorsing the hateful language. Though Mamdani postures as a torchbearer of progressive values, his rhetoric often crosses the line from fair critique into blatant misinformation, calculated falsehoods, and thinly veiled bigotry. A dangerous game, especially now, as Indian Americans gain prominence and influence in American public life. In May 2025, he drew flack for calling Prime Minister Narendra Modi a war criminal. Since Modi has waged war against Pakistan, with the Indian Air Force decimating Pakistani military bases and terrorist infrastructure, it stands to reason that Mamdani, although of Indian heritage, is a pan-Islamist who sympathizes with Pakistan. He is peeved because Modi has given a free hand to India's armed forces to strike Pakistani military targets whenever Islamabad resorts to terror attacks in India. This followed another inflammatory claim where Mamdani said he often shocks people by revealing he is a Gujarati Muslim because Modi killed so many that people don't even believe we exist anymore. These remarks were met with sharp criticism from Indians cutting across ideological lines. Congress leader Abhishek Singhvi, not known for defending Modi or Hindus, posted on X, "When Zohar Mamdani opens his mouth, Pakistan's PR team takes the day off. India doesn't need enemies with allies like him shouting fiction from New York." Mamdani's assertion that Modi wiped out Gujarati Muslims was widely condemned as provocative and factually baseless. Gujarat's 2021 census data shows Muslims make up roughly 10% of the state's population, contradicting any notion of demographic erasure. Omar Ghazi, a political analyst, called the statement not only provocative and false, but one that insults Gujarat's thriving Muslim population by denying their existence. This shows he will lie through his teeth for his ideological goals. Hindu-American educational scholar Indu Vishwanathan agrees. Mamdani is a projection of an illiberal, anti-intellectual left-wing authoritarianism that has sunk its teeth into progressive politics. The kind of authoritarianism that makes me feel deeply pessimistic about the future of my party, she says. According to Vishwanathan, who is co-director of the Understanding Hinduphobia initiative, Mamdani's lie about there being no Muslims left in Gujarat isn't accidental or something that can be dismissed. It is central to the larger fabrication of his own victimhood status in the world. Mamdani uses the false claim of Muslim erasure as supposed evidence that Narendra Modi committed ethnic cleansing of Muslims in the state. One lie props up the other. Bear in mind, Mamdani's own father is a Gujarati Muslim. Mamdani erased his own people for political expediency, with that charming twinkle in his eyes. And if he's willing to erase 7 million members of his own community of Gujarati Muslims for political expediency in New York, what does that mean for 200,000 Hindus living in New York? What does it mean for the 5 million Jews living here? Shouldn't we all be concerned when a public figure casually erases entire communities to score rhetorical points? Vishwanathan raises another key point, which dovetails with the phenomenon of children from Hindu-Muslim interfaith marriages becoming strongly Islamist while discarding their Hindu side. The maternal side of Mamdani's family tree is Hindu, and yet he never registers or acknowledges the very real oppression of Hindus in Pakistan and Bangladesh or Kashmir. If he's going to bring up religious-based conflict in South Asia, why isn't he bringing any of this to the conversation? In fact, he openly dismisses any discussion of these facts. Concerns over anti-Semitism and intifada rhetoric. Equally troubling is Mamdani's vocal support for Palestinian rights. While advocacy for Palestinian human rights is not inherently controversial, Mamdani's use of the slogan, "Globalize the Intifada," a phrase many associate with violent uprisings against Jewish civilians, has alarmed many within New York's Jewish community. Mamdani has insisted that the phrase is a metaphor for global solidarity and grassroots resistance. Still, his refusal to explicitly condemn the violent connotations of the term has only intensified fears among Jewish leaders, many of whom worry about a mayor who appears to blur the line between human rights advocacy and incendiary rhetoric. Globalizing the Intifada will almost certainly result in global violence. Many people are taking the slogan literally. Supporters of the Palestine movement have engaged in harassment, graffiti, violence, and terrorism against Jews worldwide. In recent months, pro-Palestine activists have carried out homicidal or potentially homicidal attacks in Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., and Colorado. This is the violence Mamdani supports. His psychopathic state of mind can be deduced from his May 2022 post, in which he writes about a Muslim guy marrying a Jewish girl. Another loss for the Democratic majority, for Israel. Clearly, Mamdani does not have a shred of decency. Foreign conflicts, local consequences. Mamdani is a threat to America because he has introduced distant foreign conflicts into American local governance. He is thereby setting the stage for violent clashes between the left and right, as well as between the left and law enforcement agencies. New York City, home to one of the world's most ethnically and religiously diverse populations, is already a delicate mosaic of communities. The Atlantic recently cautioned that local officials embracing international activism, especially over issues like Israel-Palestine, risk fracturing American cities along the same fault lines that divide foreign capitals. Jonathan Chait of The Atlantic comments, "An unfortunate spillover effect of the war between Israel and Hamas is its extension into U.S. politics. If we are heading toward a future in which even candidates for local office in the United States run on their position toward the Middle East, American politics will come to resemble that intractable conflict. For a mayoral candidate to make foreign policy a centerpiece of his platform, rather than focusing squarely on municipal issues like crime, housing, and education, could set a destabilizing precedent." Polarizing leadership style. Community leaders have described Mamdani's approach to leadership as more combative than collaborative. Jaspreet Singh, a Sikh community leader and human rights lawyer, said, "Hate has no place in our city." But Zoran has used his platform to amplify some of the worst anti-Hindu rhetoric imaginable. Words matter, and instead of uniting the Indian community, he seeks to divide us by religion, pitting Muslims and Hindus against each other. Associating Hindus with fascism and using derogatory words against them is highly objectionable. Singh called for an apology to the Hindu community. Meanwhile, New York Assembly member Jennifer Rajkumar, herself a Democrat and a Hindu, condemned the mayoral candidate's divisive rhetoric. Hinduism is a faith of peace, nonviolence, and interfaith harmony. Hindu voters want our leaders to build bridges, not burn them. We must reject hate, whether it comes from the far left or the far right. Our city deserves leaders who unite, not provoke, who build coalitions, not headlines, she said. The Sadiq Khan parallel. London has witnessed a huge uptick in violence after the Pakistani-origin Sadiq Khan became the mayor in 2016. Over the past 9 years, the capital of Britain has seen violent attacks by Muslims against law enforcement officers, white people, Hindus, and Jews. The city has become a safe haven for religious extremists from Pakistan and the Middle East. Khalistani extremists have also flourished and have attacked the Indian embassy at will. Khan has been criticized for prioritizing identity politics over national unity, from championing slogans like "diversity is our strength" to introducing Bangla language street signs in areas like Whitechapel. While intended to celebrate multiculturalism, these moves emphasize division over integration in a country where the ingredients in the so-called melting pot are clearly not mixing. His creation of the Commission for Diversity in the Public Realm, tasked with reviewing statues and street names in the wake of the George Floyd protests, is seen by others as unnecessarily provocative. Khan's outspoken views on international issues, particularly the Gaza-Israel conflict, have also drawn fire. His Eid message referencing the crisis was condemned by some for politicizing a religious occasion and alienating parts of the Jewish community. Meanwhile, his ongoing confrontations with conservative leaders and right-leaning media have deepened partisan divides nationwide. Mamdani's radical and divisive agenda makes Khan look benign in comparison. And there's the rub. New York is a much larger city with 750,000 Muslims, including highly radicalized Palestinians and Pakistanis. Unlike London, it has a 1.4 million strong Jewish community that takes the threats of violence seriously. The city's demographic complexity and its history of intergroup flashpoints make the stakes even higher. A mayor who courts ideological extremes may struggle to govern a city that requires consensus and unity. In this backdrop, Mamdani's incendiary approach to politics could turn New York into a battleground, a real-life Gotham City. Eating with hands, cunning ploy. As the accusations of bigotry against him gained legs, Mamdani employed a brilliant strategy to deflect public anger. He posted a video of himself eating biryani with his hand. It played out exactly as he envisaged, with the entire MAGA spectrum attacking him as a third-worlder with disgusting dining habits who has no place in America. The backlash from Asia was quick, with almost everyone rushing to defend Mamdani. Magically, the villain became the martyr, and his bigoted attacks on Hindus were quickly forgotten. In fact, he had the Hindus of America eating out of his grubby hands. Rishabh Saraswat, president of the Coalition of Hindus of North America, Canada, comments, "It's painfully apparent that Zim knows exactly what he's doing. Maneuvers designed to poke the bigots on the right, while masterfully balancing the noble savage tropes so cherished by the left. Initiate a wave of bigotry against the weird Indian tradition of eating with hands, not to defend the culture genuinely, but to unite Hindus behind him out of sheer defiance, transparently exploiting them for votes. I almost feel robbed of my dignity. This guilt-trip vote grab is downright insulting to every Indian American who can see right through his performative progressivism. We've seen this play out far too much in Canada." Vishwanathan agrees. "I cannot stress this enough. Zim knows exactly what he is doing by eating with his hands. He is baiting racists and bigots so that the volume and grotesqueness of racist and bigoted rants against him drowns out the legitimate critiques. Remarkably, he has managed to distance himself from, or have others overlook, his trenchant Hinduphobia. The upshot: Mamdani now has the support not only of Muslims, but also of a significant portion of the Hindu community in the U.S., who have come to see him as one of their own. Unfortunately for Hindus, their penchant for being quick to forget and forgive their adversaries, despite the obvious dangers of doing so, kicked in yet again. Conclusion: a risky bet for a fractured city. Mamdani's rise has brought together two incompatible and intolerant ideologies, and not in a good way. Zohar Mamdani is the product of the same poisonous cocktail between Islamism and Marxism that has plagued the intellectual discourse for several decades, says Omar Ghazi, adding, his victory shows that the radical left has strengthened its grip in United States politics. Mamdani's history of incendiary rhetoric, refusal to temper divisive slogans, and fixation on foreign conflicts raise serious concerns about his ability to govern a city as vast and multifaceted as New York. If elected, he could become the most polarizing mayor in recent memory, not simply because of what he proposes, but because of what he represents, a radical shift in how politics is done in America's largest city, with potentially destabilizing consequences.